Our, offenders and our shooters are becoming younger and younger, and we have to be very intentional in 2021. Each one is a gut punch, and I don't think any one homicide is more important than the other, but when there are children involved, I responded to several children being killed either due to negligence or crossfire or, again, playing with a gun, shot by another kid, accidental, pregnant women, elder people. It does absolutely take a toll, but I will also say that it provides motivation to get ahead of this and do everything that we can.
I think that was probably about 6 months ago, Commissioner Outlaw. Welcome back to Good Day Philadelphia. Good to have you here.
Good morning. Thank you.
And I wish that things were different than 6 months ago, but I think it might even be worse, Commissioner. What say you 6 months later?
We haven't stopped, and we're going to continue to pull out all the stops and be as creative as we can to either try to get ahead of it or to place a tourniquet on a lot of the bleeding that we've seen. And our motivation has not been lost. So, I think it's really important to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as what's needed from everyone. And I think, now 6 months later that we're having the same conversation, I think it's more apparent than ever that everyone has a role to play in this, and it's not solely put on the shoulders of the police department, but it's in solidarity or in partnership with the police department. So I've definitely seen that difference.
And even when you think about some of the things that have happened recently, for example, the shooting in Mount Airy with semi-automatic weapons, and I know a lot of people are asking, well, how are they getting these things? Where semi-automatic weapons?
Guns are really easy to obtain. We know that a lot of the guns that we're seeing here, whether they're purchased illegally and then placed in the hands of someone else, or purchased legally and then, put in the hands of someone else legally. Did I just say that right? Purchased illegally and then put in the hands illegally. You know what I'm saying, right? Yeah. They're really easy to obtain, and that's a problem. We don't have control at the local level as at this point over gun legislation. And again, we're not blaming everyone who legally owns a firearm, but they're everywhere. We've confiscated so many guns. And something has to be done. Loopholes have to be closed. Yeah. And again, there has to be consequences for people who repeatedly use these guns in a very violent way. Illegally. Yeah, the straw purchases and all that. Somebody just wrote in on Twitter who's watching the show, the 3D printing of guns. Have you seen that? Well, not so much. We've seen a little bit of that, but our biggest issue, or one of our growing issues, are with the privately made firearms or the ghost guns. Yeah. And the issue with those is that we don't have the ability to trace its original origin. So we can determine whether or not a shooting, there had been repeated shootings with the same gun, but it's very difficult to track back where that gun came from. And people know this because, again, you can purchase them legally, you put them together legally, and then they're used illegally, and they know it's more and more difficult for law enforcement to determine its origin. Alex brought up the Mount Airy situation. Did we determine if they were firing at cops? No, I mean, not at this point. The investigation is still in its early details, but we do know that, that triggered, bad word, it stemmed from a family disturbance to which we responded, and we happened to be there as all of this unfolded. So again, going back to just the brazenness of police presence, whether it's a police vehicle or actually seeing a police officer, it's not stopping people from doing what they're intent on doing.
You mentioned the brazenness, and I think of what happened recently at Federal Donuts and how, the fact that they were shooting, they ran inside a store, killed someone, and then injured a child who's eaten there with the family in the process. What do you say about the fact that now it's become so? I mean, we knew that it happens at night, in the daytime, but something about this, the fact that it just goes into a store and the carelessness and spraying bullets.
Yeah, Alex, that one was a tough one for all of us here as well. I mean, obviously the gun battle started outside of the Federal Donuts. It was still in the broad daylight. There was no regard for how many people are outside or who was outside. And then to run into a restaurant or an establishment that's filled with people and families and children. You know, it's a level of selfishness that I think we've seen a lot, but we've seen it increase throughout these times of the pandemic.
Yeah, and knowing that, I've actually heard some people and parents, while folks are excited that now we're opening up more, events are being planned again. And some people are really concerned about when we have the concerts or when people come together. Are those going to be sites where they should be concerned about what's going to happen with gun violence? Is there something that being planned, or are you looking at that for events and things that are going to be happening in the city?
Well, you know, we'll always have a presence there. And so whether it's a concert or regardless of what it is, but I think we'd be really dismissive of the effects of the pandemic if we don't at least open our minds to say, okay, let's see what psychological impact being indoors or being without all the extracurricular activities and all the things that people have done in the past event, what happens once those things are reintroduced in people's lives. Let's see what type of psychological impact that has. Yeah. Again, I'm no psychologist or social scientist, but we know that has had some impact. So hopefully, as things begin to reopen and we move into some form of new normal, hopefully we'll see some of these numbers go down. But we'll absolutely have increased presence in a lot of these areas.
We hope for that, but then you hear about the shootings that have happened at rec centers, and that should be a place that should be safe, that kids can go to let it out and to have fun. And
we can't live in fear. And, you know, as a community member, as a resident, as a parent, we cannot allow this to take over our lives. We can't allow it to determine how we move about our own city. We have to take back our streets. And again, the more, I believe, the more these folks who are out there see us saying, this isn't going to happen here, I think the better off we'll all be in the long run. But we all have to come together in solidarity to do that. And that's what we're starting to see. It's going to take some time.
I can hear people screaming at the TV. I'm sick and tired of city officials blaming this gun violence on the pandemic. And we can't use that much longer. I believe that it is a factor in it, because the entire country has seen an uptick in violence. But Commissioner, I really, and I may be a party of one here, I don't see this so much as a policing issue. I don't think solving it, I don't think the cops can solve this. I don't think it's the police department who can solve it. I think it's more of a social sciences issue, if you know what I mean. It absolutely it's family is. And stuff like that. We could have 15,000 Philadelphia police officers, doubling your force. People are still going to find a way to kill each other.
You know what, you're right. And, you know, I've heard that before. We're not blaming anything on the pandemic. The reality is that there's social determinants that have existed long before the pandemic that were exacerbated by the pandemic. We know if folks don't have access to income, wealth, capital, it's going to drive a lot of the violence that we've seen. If there's no housing, if there's no education, if people don't have food to eat, right? It's one thing to offer somebody a job, but if they don't have the skills to keep said job, that's another factor. So the reality is that it's far more than one thing. How do we as a community, how do we as a police department curb the violence that we're seeing that's happening indoors, the things that we can't prevent, the domestic violence driven violence? How do we get ahead of that? Is it the police, or is it the other determinants that lead to the domestic violence that we're seeing?
It's the old all hands on deck, Commissioner. What happened to all the hands that were on deck that we saw 6 months ago? Where are those hands?
You know, they're still around. They're still around, and you know, we know that federal investigations sometimes take a little bit longer. But I'm hoping to show, especially in the pressers that we've been doing every 2 weeks or so, we've been able, with the assistance of our local, state, and federal partners, we've been able to solve a lot of these crimes, quite frankly, and it's because of the resources that our outside partners bring, whether it's technology or people or even their time. You know, we've been knocking a dent in it, but it's not going to happen overnight.
And as far as the relationship with the community, I know you've been working and having virtual meetings, well, a lot of community meetings. How many? About 150? What are the plans moving forward then, now that we're opening up and we can actually meet in person?
Yeah, I mean, I almost didn't know how to act when I walked into one of my first meetings with a room full of people. I didn't know whether to do cartwheels or, you know, or what to do. But there's a huge advantage, I think, with being able to meet people where they are, to not see somebody or meet somebody through a screen. You can feel, you know, and I'm a pretty empathetic person. You can feel where they're coming from, and you get more honest feedback, quite frankly, when we have the ability to meet in person as community. So I'm looking forward to moving back to the warm touch points, having in-person community meetings, or even doing it in a hybrid way so we can reach more people that can't make it in person. But I'm looking forward to being able to do that.
Well, here's
really,
another thing we don't do well, and that is report crimes being solved. You know, we always report the crimes, but we never follow through. A lot of times we don't follow through. Oh, they solved that murder. Oh, they found out the person that killed that guy. We don't do that enough. We'll try to be better about that. I wanted to bring up ATVs because that's a mountain of a problem that I don't know how you're going to solve. We'll have to have you back if you're willing to do it.
Certainly, absolutely, and hopefully it's in person next time.
Yeah,
Speaking
please.
of warm touch points.
Yes.
Am I still okay? You invited me over, and it never happened.
I mean, maybe it'll be when we're in the new building, and you know we have our new digs to share.
Oh, that's cool.
But either way,
great.
Over on Broad Street, yeah. I'm looking forward to that new building. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Outlaw.